What is up? Welcome back to the BurlyFishing channel. I'm Paul again, not Jeff, and what I'm here today to show you is I'm going to do a quick walkthrough on how to make some upgrades to like a standard bump board for tournament fishing, for measuring your catches on tournament fishing. This is a Hawg Trough. These are pretty much universally accepted for digital tournaments. They're pretty inexpensive. This one I stuck up the tag on it. 20 bucks, not too bad. What do you do with them? Well, you lay your fish here, mouth touching right here, and then the tail comes somewhere, hopefully way over here, and that's how you measure your fish. You take a picture of it, you get your ID, looks something like this, you put it on the end, bang, and then you take a picture of that inside of an app, like TourneyX Pro, whatever it is that you're using, and then someone judges it, and then that is how you are participating in a digital tournament. It's a great way to do things. Nice, convenient, easy, cheap. A lot of different people can participate, and really all you need is one of these boards. They make some higher quality boards out there out of better materials than like kind of flimsy plastic. Catch Boards makes them, but they're a lot more expensive, and I'm sure there's upgraded versions of this one as well. But I think this is kind of what a lot of people gravitate towards to, especially if you're just getting started out, which is what I did. Grab one of these so I can participate in some tournaments, especially kayak fishing. I think this is a great way to get started. So this is what I have. I'm going to show you a couple of different mods that you can do to this for very inexpensive. This doesn't float, so I wanted something that floated. This flexes quite a bit, and I do anticipate I am not the most graceful human. I will probably break this shortly. I've already had some close calls, and so I kind of want to make it a little more rigid, and then I also want to make it a little bit more tournament friendly. You can see all of the numbers are marked here in black, not in yellow, but everything else is just in yellow. So that doesn't really do me a ton of good. Also, this piece right here at the end, the bump, being the same exact color as the board, I don't know if I love that. I feel like that creates some room. Like if I was a judge looking at a picture straight down, it's going to be really hard to tell if the fish's mouth is right here on the end. So I want to help with that as well. Really, none of these mods are like nothing that's already out there. You can go find videos with all of these. I'm sort of regurgitating information. I kind of wanted to try them out, let you know what my thoughts are on some of what I've seen before, some of the modifications I thought were the most practical, so you can get an idea of what ones worked, what ones didn't, how easy they really were to do, and then you can kind of just watch me do the whole thing. I'll show you some time lapse of me actually finishing everything out. So what tools, equipment, materials are you going to need to do the mods that I'm gonna do? You will need some dowel rods. This is a 5/16. I got 48 inches. You really only probably need 36 inches, but I got 48-inch dowel rods. These are pretty expensive, couple bucks from Ace Hardware, so like local hardware store. I got some silicone, waterproof. I had some of this laying around, but I got another one because I use this quite a bit. You can get these for anywhere, depending on the quality and the brand, anywhere from like $3-4 bucks all the way up to $7-8. Again, depending on how much, what brand, where you buy it, that whole thing. This I had laying around. This is a crystal clear enamel. I've only seen one video actually use this, and I thought it was such a great idea. This is probably in the $8 to $10 range, but again, I use things like this often for like home projects, so this is something that I had, to hand, not a big deal. This would be optional, but I think it's totally worth it. And then you'll need some kind of like cleaning spray. I think this is like Target or like, some brand, 7th generation. I don't know what this is some cleaning spray. And then I will kind of show you, this is tourney tag. This is just a great way to display waterproof, right? Like whatever tag you're using for the tournament that you're in. This one is for the Monster Bass tournament that's going on right now. Go enter that. It's a year-long tournament, biggest fish wins. If you happen to catch an absolute monster, you're gonna really wish that you had this and this handy. Probably one that a lot of people have in their house right now is a Sharpie. These are a couple bucks. I'll show you what I'm gonna use that for in just 1 second. So step one is actually cleaning your bump board. Step 1 complete. Hawg Trough is cleaned up, looking good. Step 2 is I'm gonna outline all of these markings. I told you before, there's all these numbers in black, but all these longer hashes here, the 1/4 inch marks and the inch marks, they're not in black. And so there could be some confusion here if you're a judge. I wanna make this as easy for the judges as possible. I am gonna do all of these hash marks. Seems like a lot. Do I anticipate catching a 30-inch bass? Probably not. But if I did, one trick that I did see when I was watching some videos is instead of trying to color them with a marker vertical like this, actually holding them this way, like horizontally, And all these are actually textured, they're bumped. So if I hold the marker this way and rub this way, I have a much lower chance of actually hitting the board. This is gonna be a little bit meticulous. Honestly, I'm kind of weird. This is what I've been looking forward to most. So I'm just gonna sit down and start knocking these out, and I'll let you know how holding it this way has gone for me when I get closer to the end here. Okay, so we've got most of the bump board markered up. You can already see I made a ton of mistakes. You see all those like crazy little bloops here and there. I do not want any of that on here. Yes, you could do it like a spray and a wipe, but you're gonna erase all these markings that you painstakingly put on here. So to avoid that, what I'm actually gonna do is grab a sharp knife, and I'm going to actually just scrape off these pieces. You'll be surprised at how well it works. So here's my first mark where I kind of screwed up. I'm just gonna take the edge of my blade here, and I'm just going to scrape off where I screwed up. Give it a quick, not so bad. All right, so step one, wash down. Step two, complete. Look at how much cleaner that is. If you're a judge, that is gonna make your photograph so much more clean, and that is gonna make all of those lines really pop. The whole tip about using the side of the marker worked pretty well, but you do have to go across twice. It doesn't write as well. I'll say this, if you have a steady hand, go on top and just really take your time and be careful. You're gonna screw up no matter what. It's just minimizing as much as possible. And with something as simple as a pocket knife or razor blade, you can go back and scrape off the extras and you can do a really nice job. This is probably the one thing above all this other stuff. If you do nothing else, this costs you like almost no money and makes a drastic improvement in exactly what this is supposed to do. Like, its core benefit is measuring fish. It measures fish much better now. While you're marking up the board, because this bump part is yellow and the board is yellow, the judge may not be able to tell from the photograph, depending on the light, whether or not the fish's mouth is actually touching here or not. And it could cost you some points, or even just that little bit of ambiguity might be the reason you get a lower score, or you get some sort of penalty or deduction. Not good. So how can we clear that up? A lot of people will just put a sticker right here on the end, just like that. What that's gonna do for you is provide some contrast to the yellow so that when the fish's mouth is right up against it, if it's covering the bottom of that sticker, they can really tell like, oh, the fish's mouth is right up against it. What I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna take my marker and I'm actually gonna trace out the point where the bump hits the board. I'm just gonna trace in right there. All right, so that's what that looks like. Now they can see exactly where the bottom of this bump is and where it's meeting the board, and they're gonna be able to tell if the fish's mouth is breaking that line or not. The other thing that you can do if you don't wanna burn a sticker is just draw a pattern, something on here. So I'll show you, I'll do something really quick. All right, so I just got goofy with it. I drew a little weird checkerboard pattern. Doesn't have to make any sense, doesn't have to be symmetrical. So quick, simple. The minimum I would say though, outline this bottom part here. That's the minimum that I would say. Super easy. If you don't like weird stuff at the end there, no big deal. Cover it up with a sticker. Okay, so we're finally done with the marker. I'm gonna let all of that marker dry and make sure it's good and dry. While I am doing that, I talked about how these are kind of flexy, flimsy, and they don't float. And I also talked about needing to get some of these dowel rods. There's little troughs running along both sides of the back of this hog trough. These 5/16 inch dowel rods fit right inside of there. The first thing I'm gonna do is cut the dowel to length so that it fits inside the trough, just like that. Once I get those cut to length, I'm not gonna put them in. Before I put them in, I'm gonna put some of the silicone. I'm gonna run a pretty heavy bead from the very, very front all the way to the very, very end. Then I'm going to set the cut dowel rod inside of there, and then I'm gonna take another bead and go all the way along the top. That is gonna make these waterproof. It's also gonna completely fill this whole gap. It's gonna do two things. One, this is gonna make the whole thing float. It's also gonna provide a little more rigidity and make this a little more structurally strong so that you have a lower chance of breaking it. So first things first, let's get these bad boys cut. So there's a lot of different ways that you could cut these. I just use a little hacksaw, and I actually just scored and snapped them. You can use cut pliers. I mean, you can use a saw, you could use a miter saw, you could use anything. These are really thin, not hard to cut. But yeah, not a perfect end. You don't need perfect ends, you don't need perfect cuts. If it fits in here, you're good. Now I'm gonna fill that trough with a nice heavy bead of this silicone. I will say you'll want some paper towel handy for this one. Now we got our bead laid down. Now we take our dowel rod, and I'm going to press it in there. This one's got to turn because it's got a little bend to it. And press that dowel rod right into that silicone. And I want to see it coming up out of the side, the silicone coming up out of the sides there. All right, now I'm gonna go back again, and I'm gonna fill it in. I'm gonna use this entire tube. So I'm gonna fill in the top here and run another couple beads. If you get enough in there and you do the right amount, you should be able to take your finger and just press down, and that should be coating the entire thing. Don't go too fast, it'll run out the sides. You really want to be like just enough pressure so that all the silicone is actually filling down into the cracks. "30 minutes till it's dry." So we're gonna give that 30 minutes. I use basically this whole thing. This was a 2.8 ounce container, one of the smaller ones you can get. But that actually filled that gap entirely right to the top, both sides, really well. If you're not good with caulk, maybe you need to get a bigger one, get a full sizer or two of those small ones. But this worked just fine. Pretty easy to lay down, no mess. I'm indoors and on a worktop, but didn't get anywhere, so I'm happy with that. We'll give this 30 minutes, we'll let this dry, and then I'll show you kind of the last thing that I'm gonna do. Stay tuned. Okay, so that silicone is dry. It looks fantastic. This is a heck of a lot more rigid. It still's got enough flex to where it's not just gonna like break for no reason, but it will also float, and it is waterproof. All that silicone is gonna keep this waterproof. You don't want it floating in the water for like 6 weeks, but you know what? It's gonna float, and it's gonna be hard to miss because it pretty much glows in the dark. So now that all of that is done, the last step here is all these marks I made with marker. That's just Sharpie marker. It's on there pretty good, but it's not gonna last forever. And I do not wanna go through that tedious process of remarking again. So I'm going to actually protect all those markings that I made with some Rust-Oleum. This is a crystal clear enamel, non-yellowing. It's meant for outdoor use. I'm just gonna do one kind of heavy coat. I want to make sure that those markers, again, stay on there for as clear as possible. I would recommend if you buy something, get something that is either super clear or sort of like a matte or semi-gloss, like a lower reflective finish. If you get a lot of light reflection off this when you're trying to take a picture, you could have an issue trying to submit that for a tournament. So this is crystal clear. I feel like this is gonna work just fine. So I'm gonna take this outside where it's warm. I'm gonna spray it. It takes about 30 minutes for it to dry, and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so that is the last step. Everything has dried up, and this enamel coating came out fantastic. It's super smooth, crystal clear, and I don't know if you can see that, but it is protecting all of those lines. So those marker lines are gonna last a heck of a lot longer. They're gonna stand up to all the sunlight, all the water, and all the like rubbing of fish and everything on there way better. I love this. It took it's warm out, so it was 85, 90 today, and this probably dried in 15, 20 minutes. This was awesome. So your 3 options for upgrading your bump board. We went ahead, we did the marker outline. I suggest everybody do that every time. If you really want to make that last, go ahead and put that enamel coating on. I do recommend that you put some kind of Sharpie or put a sticker here at the bump board at the end, and at a minimum, trace out that bottom line. I think that's gonna make you way more efficient and make sure that you have a lot more efficiency taking great pictures for judges for these tournaments. And then adding in the dowels with all that silicone to keep them waterproof makes this way more sturdy, and best of all, makes it float. So those are some of the modifications that I thought looked like they would work best. I highly recommend all of them. I thought they were all very useful, helpful, pretty quick and easy, and not very expensive. And the best part about all of them is I do think they will make you all more efficient, take better photos that will get judged better, and help you have more success in kayak fishing tournaments. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you had a little fun. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, please consider subscribing, smash the like button, ring the notification bell so you can see when we post the next video. Thank you so much, and we will catch you out on the water.